It's actually kind of crazy to me how Wizards keeps messing this up. I don't really know Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but seeing it from the set and doing a little bit of additional research, it seems like the kind of thing I would really like. It seems like trashy shonen, and that's my favorite thing in the world. Y'all aren't ready for the info dumping I'm gonna do once the Jujutsu Kaisen set comes out. I'm 100% part of the target audience, but Wizards aren't even trying to get me to engage with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a property. Just like with Spider-Man, they're not telling the story of these characters or this world, they're only referencing it, pointing at it, and expecting me to already know what's going on. This is foolish. Universes Beyond sets can be really fantastic when they actually adapt the source material. But these lazy reference sets are garbage, the instant skip beach episode fan service of Magic the Gathering, and I don't like it. I imagine a good portion of you feel the same. So here's what I did for you. I went through the set and dug out the 9 cards that are worth knowing about, so that you don't have to deal with this shit, but also don't miss out on a bit of gold thrown out with the moldy pizza box. It's a pizza set with really weird cheese. I'm not sure if Watsy has ever seen pizza cheese, but it doesn't look like it. This is like TikTok brain cheese. I don't know, some brain rot is going on there. Anyways. Couple of honorable mentions first. Lessons from Life is a 4-mana green and blue sorcery that draws us 3 cards and then we may put a land from our hand onto the battlefield tapped. This is for the most part a better Urban Evolution, and Urban Evolution is a fine card. If you are in the growth spiral, eureka moment, Urban Evolution business, then Lessons from Life is a great addition. Ground Chuck and Dirtbag are a 6-mana 8/8 with Trample that adds a green mana whenever we tap a land for mana. Mana doublers are very powerful. This is a bad mana doubler, but it comes with quite the sizable body. An 8/8 with Trample is serious damage and plays nicely into mono-green card draw engines. But there you also have why this is only an honorable mention. These guys only add green mana, which means they really ought to be played in a green-dominated deck. Still powerful, but a little more clunky than I would like. And then last for the honorable mentions, Swift Demise. A 3-mana black instant that deals 1 damage to target creature and then destroys each creature we don't control that was dealt damage this turn. This is a card with huge potential. 2 of our opponents trade into each other and we then blow them out by destroying both their boards at instant speed. But that seems a bit optimistic to me. Those kinds of combat scenarios just aren't very common in Commander. Most players don't even try to block until it's already too late and they're getting killed by an overrun. And even if somebody does end up blocking, we don't have control over that specific situation. It's a bit easier when we are the ones getting attacked, but by the time we get to cast it for full benefit, damage has already been dealt, and that might just be an unacceptable problem itself. Yes, this can lead to big moments, but most of the time this card will play like a mediocre 3-mana single target removal spell. I think. There's of course also the possibility that this is a blowout often enough that a little bit of occasional mediocrity is worth it. It comes down to the question of what you value in your cards. Personally, I want my cards to always do what I expect them to do, and I try to avoid low roll scenarios as much as possible. I mean, I don't even like Mana Leak, even though it is objectively a pretty solid card, but when I'm countering a spell, I really want it to be countered. I don't want to give my opponents the option of paying to get out of that. But if you're somebody who enjoys the gamble and is ready to take some risk, then Swift Demise could be the perfect card for you. It just isn't for me, so it's an honorable mention. Alright, so we got 3 groups of cards here, increasing in importance between groups but not within. Our first batch is Coin of Mastery, Continue, and Endless Footer Sword. Coin of Mastery is a 4-mana artifact that can be tapped to create a treasure token. It also has each of our creatures enter with a +1/+1 counter for each mana from an artifact source spent to cast it. If we cast a 5-mana creature and 3 of that mana comes from artifacts, which can of course be treasures but doesn't have to, regular mana rocks count, then that creature enters with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. Coin of Mastery is not a card for every deck. It needs either mana rocks or treasures, but if we have that, then this makes all of our creatures into solid beaters. Something that's easy to forget is that the vast majority of creatures commonly seen in Commander have kinda shitty stats. Professional Facebreaker is amazing, but it's also a 2-free. Coin of Mastery can quite easily turn it into a 3-4 or 4-5, and all of a sudden it's become much more difficult to deal with. Utility creatures are usually understated. Buffing them even a little can go a long way at applying pressure. I'm not saying that we should sacrifice 5 treasures to maximize the +1/+1 counters instead of just using our lands. Rather, I'm saying that we should tap our Arcane Signal to turn Shoreline Looter into a 2/2. These small advantages accumulate quickly, and Coin of Mastery does this without needing any further investment, and even its deck building cost isn't particularly high. It's also a weird mana rock that lets us transfer mana between turns and has treasure synergies. This is a card best suited for decks that only want to spend a portion of their mana every turn on creatures, and that have small creatures worth buffing. But that's a broad category, so I think this is a pretty solid card. Continue is a white 2-mana instant. It lets us choose up to 4 target creature cards in our graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn, and then return them to the battlefield. I've seen lots of excitement for this card, and I agree, I think it's good. Instant speed resurrection like this can be powerful. Brought Back and Face Reward are comparable, and I've won many games with those two. However, if your opponents are expecting them, then these cards can be played around by either establishing graveyard hate or prioritizing exile-based removal. If it comes to board protection, I would still much rather play Dawn's Truce or Clever Concealment. The real strength of Continue isn't protection but flexibility when paired with sacrifice. Getting to choose the timing to double up on up to 4 ETBs or death triggers, maybe even both, is fantastic. Orzhov aristocrats are going to love this card, and it'll be absolutely excellent there. But everywhere else, Restoration Magic gets the job done just as well. I'm being a bit negative here because this card is currently going for over €20 in pre-sales. It's good, but it's not that good. Give it a bit, it'll come down in price. Endless Foot Assault is a white 3-mana enchantment. Whenever we attack, for each opponent we create a 1/1 Black Ninja creature token that attacks that player. This effect is nearly identical to Adeline Resplendent Cathar, and Adeline is a great card. She can put out loads of pressure, especially when combined with White's token synergies that easily buff the creatures created and let us turn them into long-term advantage. This effect also doesn't care which of our creatures attack, meaning we can soon use the tokens to create more and more of them. Now, I would argue that Adeline is better than Endless Foot Assault if you're just looking at one of each card, because Adeline can also put out a lot of damage herself. But Endless Foot Assault has another ability. When we cast it, we can spend 2 mana any number of times, and for each time we do, we create a copy of Endless Foot Assault. For 5 mana, we get 2, for 7, 3. Each of these trigger independently. If we have 3 of these on the battlefield and attack, then we create a total of 9 tokens that are also swinging. And we do that every turn. Flexibility that keeps our draws good at all times is huge in Commander, and Endless Foot Assault is exactly that. It plays very nicely as part of early value engines, but can later also be used as a finisher that quickly takes over a match, especially if you put in a little bit of effort to buff the tokens. Add Caretaker's Talent into the mix, and the game will be over in a heartbeat. It's also worth noting that it's difficult to get rid of. Endless Foot Assault isn't a singular enchantment that we scale up, but rather it's multiple copies, meaning that if our opponents want to get rid of it for good, they'll need a sweeper that hits enchantments. That's not impossible, of course, but it is more difficult. Alright, our next group is Cool But Rude, Super Combo, and Turtles in Time. But first, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. I would also greatly appreciate your support on Patreon. There's lots of bonus contents over there, like extra deck techs, deck tours, deck reviews, deck lists. It's just a lot of deck stuff. I think you would like it. Cool But Rude is a red 2-mana class enchantment. Its first level gives us the option of rummaging whenever we attack. I really value easy looting and rummaging like this, because it lets me play a high number of lands, usually at least 40, and still never worry about getting flooded. The best way to ramp in Commander is to simply always hit your land drop, because other people are going to miss theirs, and if you just play a land every single turn, then we're going to be ahead eventually. And cards like this ensure that. But of course, there are also many discard synergies. Particularly, Red has a great number of fantastic flashback cards like Sorcerer's Schemes and Ignite the Future, But of course, a more direct approach with, for example, Monument to Endurance can also be very powerful. In fact, Cool But Rude itself is a discard synergy piece, as its second level, which we can reach by spending another 2 mana, so it's not expensive at all, makes it so that whenever we discard a card, Cool But Rude deals 2 damage to each opponent. Self-discard decks can have such an easy time cycling through their hand. This is a lethal engine piece. It not only enables discard synergies, but is also the payoff for them. And then it even has a third ability. For another 2 mana, we get to cast Gamble. Just straight up Gamble, searching any card out of our deck and then discarding one at random. Gamble is of course not the best tutor out there, but if it comes attached to an otherwise already fantastic card, that's kind of crazy. Super Combo is a green 2 mana sorcery. It's a bite, making it so that target creature we control deals damage equal to its power to target creature an opponent controls. It also has Replicate 2, meaning when we cast the spell, we can pay the Replicate cost any number of times, and then as we cast the spell, we copy it as often as we paid. There's this meme/idea that's been going around for a long time that green can do anything in Commander. And that's just blatantly not true, because green doesn't have board vibes. Apex Ultisaur and Azuri's Predation are our best options, but they are not great. Apex Ultisaur pretty quickly runs out of HP to keep fighting, and Azuri's Predation can be game-winning, but it can also do nothing. It's not reliable. Super Combo, on the other hand, is very difficult to interrupt. First of all, it's a bite, not a fight. We don't have to worry about our creature dying. Second, Replicate is difficult to counter, because it places copies of the spell on the stack as we cast it. If we are really worried about counter magic, then we can just put our most important bite on the stack twice. Third, Replicate also lets us choose new targets for every copy. This of course means we can clear multiple of our opponent's creatures, but it also means we don't have to do it all from the same starting creature. A problem Chandra's ignition effects like this tend to have is that they can fizzle if our opponents kill our creature before the spell resolves. But Super Combo allows us to choose multiple of our creatures. For every target we are trying to get rid of, we can choose an appropriate one of our own. Our strongest for their strongest, our second strongest for their second, our third for their third, and so on. Yes, our opponents will still be able to interrupt a part of our Super Combo, but if we're smart about our targets, they'll never be able to stop all of it. And again, we can just double up if there's something super important that we need to clear. However, I do think this is a mono-green only card, maybe Simic as well. Very strong in the colors that can actually ramp up enough to spend a lot of mana on it, and can have lots of creatures in play to bite, but decidedly worse everywhere else, and everywhere else also just has regular board vibes. But it's good in green, it's really good in green. Turtles in Time is a blue 7 mana sorcery. It returns all creatures to their owner's hands. Then each player may shuffle their hand and graveyard into their library and draw 7 cards. Then we exile Turtles in Time. At first glance, this card seems a bit shit. 7 mana to make our opponents draw 7? Ugh, no thanks. But the order of operations here is very important. We first bounce all creatures and then we shuffle. A problem bounce sweepers usually have is that our opponents can just play their creatures again, and then we still have to deal with them. But if our opponents take the deal and shuffle their hand away, well, then their threats are gone, they are not in their hand anymore. This also effectively kills commanders, as they are likely to head back to the command zone. And if our opponents don't want to draw, then that's fine too. We'll gladly be the only ones benefiting from a draw 7. Turtles in Time is expensive. 7 mana is a big ask, and we need to make sure to not hit our own board with it. But there's enough value here that it's worth it for decks that want to build their advantage in non-creature ways. That can be enchantments, artifacts, or, of course, lands. Simic land piles are going to love having such an easy way to reset and reload. That brings us to my top 3. You know, as I was writing this video, Tolarian Community College released a very similar one, and I watched it because I was curious how much overlap we have. Turns out, none. because their focus was a lot more on the big flashy creatures that when you get them on the board and they stick around, they can spiral the game out of control, like Shark Shredder, Killer Clone, and Slash Reptile Rampage. But I look at those cards and I think to myself, those are just finishes that close out a game from a winning position. And you do need finishes. I'm not saying that they aren't useful, but there are already so many of them that which exact one you're using doesn't really matter. I'm not bringing this up as some sort of attack. It's fine to focus on the flashy stuff if that's what's important to you, but I always view Commander as a struggle for resources, so my recommendations focus on that. I think Cool But Rude is 10 times better than the cloning of Shredder, not because it finishes the game quicker, but because it gets us into a position to finish the game. And that's what's actually tricky. Alright, top 3. Let's start with April O'Neil, Hacktivist. April O'Neil Hacktivist is a blue 4-mana 1/5 that, at the beginning of our end step, draws us a card for each card type among spells we have cast this turn. Blue is a little funky in Commander, because it doesn't actually have that much generic repeatable card draw. There actually is no blue card that just says, at the beginning of your end step, draw a card. Well, until now. It's trivial to trigger April once. That automatically happens even on the turn that we cast her. And 2 triggers aren't really hard either. That's just playing a mana rock and a creature. If we add a cantrip into the mix, that's another draw. Or we can double up on things with artifact creatures. And while we can maximize this by building our deck with her in mind, we don't have to. If we play ever so slightly carefully and make sure to stagger our card types as we cast them, April turns nearly all of our spells into cantrips, which is fantastic. She's also a 1/5, a really nice defensive stat line that will save us lots of health. April reminds me a lot of Mangara the Diplomat, and that card kicks ass. She's easy to cast, always replaces herself, and then draws a whole bunch more and keeps us protected. Great card. Next up, Ninja Pizza! Okay, I know I'm being negative about the set, and I do feel that. I am negative about the set. But I do like the name Ninja Pizza. It's just fun to say. Ninja Pizza! It's a green 3-mana enchantment that gives our food the ability to sacrifice for mana, like a treasure, and creates a food token at the beginning of our second main phase. It makes the food into treasures. The pizza is a treasure. I don't know, I kind of like it, okay? Leave me alone. Food decks are getting so busted. It seems like every set has more and more broken food cards, and this is one of them. Food decks are usually a bit of a 2-piece set. Cards that make food and cards that use it, because food itself isn't really that useful. Ninja Pizza does both, which is already outstanding. But even better is that it turns food into one of the most valuable things it can become: mana. Oftentimes this card will just be free, likely mana positive because we can just cast it and start sacrificing our food for bigger plays. And just imagine this thing with Peregrine token play. Honestly, I don't even know what else to say. Food decks are already good, and this will be a guaranteed staple in all of them. Finally, my top card from TMNT, the Ooze. The Ooze is a colorless 2-mana artifact. Whenever one of our creatures leaves the battlefield, we create a number of mutagen tokens equal to the number of +1/+1 counters that creature had. And we can also tap the Ooze to exile target card from a graveyard and create a mutagen token. Mutagen tokens are artifact tokens that for 1 mana can be tapped and sacrificed to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. The Ooze is glue. It has so many small advantages that all reach into various ideas and archetypes, while also being independently useful, that it's always going to feel good to play. Let's start with the graveyard hate aspect. Removing just 1 card from a graveyard per turn rotation may not seem that impressive, but that's usually good enough. Unless we're playing against a super graveyard heavy pod, I wouldn't expect more than 1 reanimation attempt per turn rotation, and it's not like people even go for it when graveyard hate is in play. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't cast Reanimate while the Ooze is untapped. And so we get to just wait and eventually take whatever's the most threatening out of our opponent's graveyard. I don't play much Reanimator, but in nearly all of my decks I will include cards that are castable out of my graveyard, so that I always have something to do even when my hand is looking weak. Embrace the Unknown is literally the first card I put in any red deck. The ooze, just snacking that up, would be very annoying, especially since that also creates a mutagen token. Mutagen tokens aren't all that powerful. They're kind of expensive for what they do, which isn't much. But they're still not the worst way to spend a mana. A +1/+1 counter is a real benefit, and there are decks that really like +1/+1 counters, and also mutagen tokens are both tokens and artifacts. Caretaker's Talent will draw a card, and Peregrine Took will create an additional token. Thought Monitor will cost less, and Katara Bending Prodigy can use them to waterbend. Having random permanents on the board is usually good. There are endless ways of using them. The mutagens are also a small incremental mana sink. I don't usually like the mana sink argument because it often revolves around abilities too expensive to actually be worth using over a spell, but right here it's sensible because we can mana sink one individual mana at a time, which is much more applicable to real scenarios. It is a bit tricky though because the mutagens can only be activated at sorcery speed, but hey, it's not unusual to end the turn with one mana left over, and now that becomes a counter. And that counter then becomes a mutagen token again when the creature with it leaves the battlefield. The ooze is its own engine, creating mutagen tokens which give counters which create mutagen tokens. There are even infinites here. Shadowfang's Scroll General will create an equal number of scrolls whenever we create a token. If we then also have anything that gives counters on ETB, like Tribute to the World Tree, and a Sacrifice Outlet, we can put a counter on a creature, sacrifice it, create a mutagen token and a scroll. Then Tribute puts 2 counters on that scroll. Then we sacrifice the scroll, get 2 mutagens and 2 scrolls with 2 counters each, and that continues exponentially. This may look like an inefficient combo that requires lots of pieces, but this is what I like to call a critical mass combo, where we don't need anything specific, and rather, we just want enough pieces that all do something loosely related until we eventually have so many that the engine starts powering itself. And if you don't want to go infinite, then we can still quite easily use the ooze to accelerate like crazy. Captain Storm Cosmium Raider lets us put a +1/+1 counter on a pirate we control whenever we have an artifact enter. Play her, buff our other pirates, the pirates die, we get mutagens, we transfer the counters. If we build around this idea, then the ooze becomes very similar to the Orsalith. And it's not just Captain Storm. Sophia Dog Detective lets us sacrifice an artifact token to put a +1/+1 counter on all of our dogs, which then create mutagens when they die. There are lots of cards like this. We can also sacrifice the mutagens into Deadly Dispute, Crack Clan Ironworks, Grinding Station, and who knows what else. There's absolutely no shortage for uses of these. The more I talk about the ooze, the better I think it is. It's an easy inclusion in loads and loads of decks, and it should always perform absolutely fantastically. Hello, it is me, Midnight Baumi. It is late, but I wanted to record this video. It's actually past midnight, like it's nearly 1 already, oops. You ever stay up too late because you really want to get the video done so that tomorrow you can work on the secret project that you've been working on? Anyhow, so setting that aside, couple of notes really quick. I know it's like really fancy commanders in the set, and I don't know, like I watched the TCC video and I felt like I should talk about those because that's all they talk about, but like honestly speaking, the ooze is so much better than any commander in the set, right? Like, why would I want to reanimate something from an opponent's graveyard? What if there's only shit in there? Like, I want to do my stuff because my cards are actually good. I know what my opponents play, and it's terrible. They never play any good cards. Anyway, setting that aside. So, a lot of the cards that I mentioned here are actually in the precon. More than half of the cards are in the precon. And the precon also has really good lands in it. So if you're just kind of like looking for like what's a cost-effective way of getting stuff, then you could actually look at the precon. As far as I'm concerned, I'm probably just gonna buy the 12 cards that I mentioned and then leave it at that. It's probably my plan. Definitely getting the ooze though. I'm actually kind of excited for that one. That card is cool as hell. Okay, anyhow, I'm gonna go to bed. I'll see you guys. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Patreon in the description. Would really appreciate your support. Cooking some really cool stuff for the channel. Hope you guys are looking forward to it. Not gonna spoil it just yet, but I'll show you soon. All right, goodbye.